All right, I swear, one of these days I'm gonna get a chance to do a little more B-roll and behind-the-scenes videos when the actual event is happening. Just wrapped it up. It was really great. So the actual event is basically one day plus afternoon session beforehand. So pretty short, pretty quick, pretty simple. Just some conversations, a couple PowerPoint presentations in the front of the room. The one interesting piece was yesterday morning, actually. So it's the next morning, was able to pack everything up, got to head to the airport pretty soon. What we did was had three different vendors, so three presentations, connect remotely. They weren't here in Vegas, they were from all over, and they showcased a video of their product and then took questions for 15 minutes afterwards, just from the audience, from people in the room. So the challenge was creating that setup and being able to run everything from the back of the room. I knew base level, if we just needed to get this done, we could have had a Zoom call on the PowerPoint computer and they would have been able to share their screen, kind of share things themselves. Way more cumbersome, definitely less smooth, definitely less polished. So I wanted to be able to run it from behind the room, from the back of the room. So I want to talk to you just a little bit about that setup and the way it worked. Worked really well. Super happy with the way that turned out. Everybody, I got several comments from people who were running the event. They were very happy and very pleased. But unfortunately, I have to run to the airport, finish getting packed and getting things ready to go. So we're going to talk about that when I get home. But let's head to the airport.
All right, so I'm back from Vegas. Excuse the mess in the office. It's a little crazy. Just got unpacked, just got back last night, and I'm getting ready packing because I'm going on another trip tomorrow. So let's jump in and talk about, I want to run you through what I did to make that work so that we could play essentially like a Zoom call. It was so we could have virtual presenters in the front of the room played over the PowerPoint computer. What we needed in order to make this work was actually two computers, and then we used vMix Call, and I want to kind of walk you through that again and show you as much as I can. Obviously, we're not connected to everything right now, so I can't fully walk you through, but let's take a look at what this is. So here I am in kind of that vMix setup that I have, and you're going to notice under the input, I created this call right here, and this one was the one that was streaming, that was connected to the actual PowerPoint computer. Originally wanted to use NDI. I think NDI would have been a little smoother, a little bit better. For whatever reason, I was having trouble getting the NDI systems to talk to each other. Wasn't quite working, so we went to kind of that next level down in backup situations. That's why I always recommend have backups for your backups and kind of plan out what you're going to do if something doesn't go right. So the day before, couldn't get NDI connected, so just kind of scrapped it and went with the vMix call route. So the computer at the front of the room, which was connected to the projector screen, normally displaying PowerPoint or whatever, that's what I would normally be doing. This time I had a vMix call up there. I shut off the video, shut off the mic, shut off the video box, and then made it full screen. So if you've ever used vMix Call, that should hopefully make sense. But I made it full screen and sent output number 2 to that screen, to that call. So in here in the settings, if we jump in and go to settings, you're gonna notice it is receiving output 2. I ended up, because of some internet issues, bumping it down to 720. Once we ended up having 5 people join 5 people join through vMix Call. So we ended up using a lot of, plus we were streaming, so we ended up using a lot of internet. So plus the other vMix Call, so actually 6 vMix Call instances. So I ended up bumping it down. I did have it on the high for the rest of the program. Worked really well on that. Looked great up on the projector as well. And then I had the audio coming through as bus A. Specifically wanted to do that so I could control when they're being heard by the entire room versus when they could talk to just me. So I wanted to be able to control the room noise as well as what was going out to the recording, and then have a back channel to talk to me. So hopefully that is kind of making sense. I'm going to continue to walk you through that. So this vMix Call was essentially the PowerPoint computer. So that was where all that was displayed. Then I just brought each person in over their normal, just like I would for vMix call. So I brought them all in. I already deleted one of them, but brought them in and had theirs all set as well to, you're going to see their audio source is bus B and output 2. Video source, audio source, bus B, output 2. So you're going to notice I have all 3 A, B, and C buses turned on. You also get other buses as well, but I turned all 3 of those on. And if we go here, what you're going to notice is that usually what I am sending through the PowerPoint computer is bus B. So this one, I pulled it off after a while, but I would always send like the music there. So what I would be doing during in between sessions, I started doing this from the first session, is I would be playing the little logo and have the song playing as well, so that is going throughout the room. So they just heard that song and saw that logo on loop when it was during a break time. So I would have the logo looping just during, if nothing else was being displayed. This was a very open, big discussion type of event. So there was just discussion from table to table. So no PowerPoint or anything like that needed to be displayed. So I would just have the logo kind of looping up there. This was my break before the start of the day. This is the coming soon session. So you have the session starts, have a little countdown timer, and this actually was transparent, so you could see the main camera of the main room. So it kind of showed a wider angle of the entire room, so you could see people moving in the background. I believe I have it transparent at 50% transparency, opacity, whichever is the appropriate term. That's how I had that set up. Jumping back here, you're going to notice have a few of the different camera instances set and ready to go. And basically this was taking from the input, the vMix call, and just overlaying a little logo on that. And then we had 2 of them that were from the same company, so we had that up there where I could have both people being displayed on screen at the same time through this instance. Each of them had a video that they wanted to display. So I had this set up here where I could click through and display the video. So we displayed the video first. The way the session worked, countdown timer into in-person individual kind of emceeing everything and being kind of the host of it. So she did an introduction to the first company, the first presenter. We'd play their video. At that same time, I had a shortcut where I would start the timer because we had it set so that instead of session, it would display the countdown timer and the Q&A session. So that would be displayed throughout it wouldn't be displayed during the video. I didn't want that showed up during the video, so I had 2 different shortcuts on my Stream Deck where I could just click the button to bring the Q&A session up and bring the little timer. I also set the timer to 15 minutes at the start. And then I had a little button on the Stream Deck that I just tapped, and that turned it on, that started the timer and started the countdown. There's a shortcut where you can start countdown. So just use that in order to start that timer. And so then once their videos were over, we switched. So the videos were played full screen on the PowerPoint, on the projector. Once it was over, we'd switch to whoever the individual was, getting ready to take Q&A based off of their company. And then I had the little Q&A countdown timer here. Now, honestly, that flowed pretty smoothly. I'll get to a couple things I would have done differently. But one of the trickier pieces was handling that audio piece. Once you kind of figured it out, ended up being relatively smooth. So the way I had everything working is that bus B went to the vMix call, went to the projector, essentially, went to the PowerPoint, the vMix call that was running, that was on the PowerPoint computer. So it was what was being displayed in the screen. We had that computer plugged into the house audio system so that everybody could hear whoever was speaking and the videos that were being played as well. That part worked pretty smoothly, worked really well. I also knew that I wanted to be able to talk to these people as we're getting set up. But even before I get there, the other thing is we're doing a stream of this. So we need to make sure that the streaming audience can hear the videos, can hear the Q&A, and then the recording as well. So the master, whenever I had just the general master, so the videos would play on the master. And I switched all of this on to once we were getting started with the session, but it was off prior to that. But I turned on just the master on each of these, so all the individuals, so they would all be heard through that, as in addition to bus B. So I made sure all of that was on, and then I just turned their mics on and off with a shortcut through the Stream Deck. That's once the sessions were started. I knew before we got started, I wanted to be able to make sure everything was working, answer any questions that they have just directly with them without the room hearing and without it being recorded or streamed. Because again, we had the stream started a while before that just to make sure everything was working. And obviously people were having breakfast in that room, so we wanted to make sure that they weren't hearing the conversation. So the way I accomplished that was by turning the master and bus B off on all of those individuals ahead of time and turning bus A on. I then had my own mic plugged into the system that was only going in through A, and then all I had to do to talk just to them is turn on solo bus A. So I heard everything that came through bus A. I didn't have to hear any of the music or any of the other stuff. I could just talk directly to them by creating that little bit of a back channel. So that was the setup. That's what we ran with. Mentioned there is really only one major thing that I would have done differently. And I tried to switch it halfway through and realized I didn't have everything set up in order to smoothly make it. And there's just a lot going on. So I kind of ended up scrapping that piece. But what ended up happening is that output 2, you can change what the output is seeing. So output 2, I had initially set to, you can see here, I had it initially set to just the output. So it's displaying whatever was on the output screen, because I had to be switching from video to Q&A to all those types of things. And I knew normally, like in between sessions, I had the logo being displayed, whatever output that was. I forget what output that was, but normally that's what I had displayed like during a session. If we weren't using PowerPoint, I just had the looping logo graphic displayed. But here I knew I needed the output most of the time at least, but then I wanted to get it, what happens with that, it was output 2 would then say if I switch to the main in the room camera, if I just jump to that camera, and we wouldn't have this necessarily. We probably would have the countdown timer on there, but it would jump and show the room camera, so the person asking the question or the MC, depending on who's there. And what I wanted was for everybody in the room to be able to see the person, the presenter, the person who was on vMix call the entire time, so that they felt like they were having more of a conversation versus it disappearing and showing themselves looking up at a screen that's showing themselves, that kind of thing. So what I did was during one of the Q&As, I switched output 3 to input 23. I think it might even still be set up from there. So let's see. Output 3 to input 23. Yep, so that was James. And that meant that the entire time that was being displayed, James was up there being displayed as that output. The issue is that while in here, in vMix right now, you can see in the general output 1, you can see Q&A session, you can see the countdown timer. However, the overlays that we have, you can see the Q&A session is from an overlay that was not being displayed. So what I should have done is gone through, once we had these pieces, actually overlay it directly into the camera. So that way when I switched that output 3 to that camera, or during that piece, it would have had the timer on there initially. So luckily we caught it before we ran out of time. Somebody actually mentioned it to me, thankfully, because I didn't realize that right away. So luckily it was caught, and I was able to throw the timer up there so people could see how much time was left in their Q&A session. Now, the reason I did it that way is because I wanted to make sure that output 2 was still getting and then what would allow, by having the projector screen be output 3, I could send the actual presenters a different output so that they could, a different view, so that they could get a better idea of what was going on and what they were seeing. So if everything was set up in the way I want, and I actually did some of this, I did some of the screen work through Stream Deck codes, because you can change the output using shortcuts on Stream Deck. So next time I'm going to build that out significantly more. We got another event next month, less than a month at this point. So I'm going to start building some of that out because I know I'm going to be doing more of that. It might not necessarily be with remote presenters on this one, which is nice. But I want to be able to do a bunch with running the main projector screen in the main room so that we can switch to the appropriate thing. So I can show cameras when I want to show cameras and maybe have a different view. Because one thing I don't ever want to do is in the room. So I love this like picture-in-picture view. This right here, when we're doing a remote event. So if somebody is live streaming and I want them to be able to see the individual in the first camera in this camera spot, in this spot, I want them to be able to see the camera, and I want them to be able to see the PowerPoint right here. But I don't want that in the main room. If you're sitting in a conference, you don't want to be seeing this type of look. What I want to be able to do in that conference is, when appropriate, have it be full screen PowerPoint, and at other times switch to the camera on the individual presenter. So I think that's going to be neat. I think we're definitely going to be able to make that happen, but it's going to take a little more creating some more output shortcuts with the Stream Deck. That's the big overview of how this kind of event worked. The one big piece that I was really hoping to tackle and improve on in this event, I think it went really well, really smoothly. I highly recommend checking it out, testing it out. If you have an event where you have that ability, go give it a shot, and I don't think you're going to regret it. Being able to test out these types of things and continue to improve is one of my favorite things, and it's one of the most important things that I think you do with your live streams is find ways to continue to improve, to continue to grow. So keep learning, keep trying stuff out, and if you want to learn one of my favorite ways to actually create a more dynamic live stream, be sure to check out this video right here.